Breaker Ballsay. I'm Chris Thompson, and you're connected to the Brain Software Podcast. This is episode 262, originating and emanating and transmitting from Toronto, Canada. Today, Mike Mandel and I are discussing the weirdness and strangeness of hypnosis. Weird things that you can fix that you'd never think about. Mustard and math on a tabletop. So hang in there.
Disclaimer. Despite our most glanative attempts to raise the world's level of sanity above this mid-dim madness, there are those who wish for us to cease and desist. But here's the thing. Can you really stop us? Can you stop us at all?
Hey, Croaker Sack. What's happening, Scroll? It's the people's physicist, Dave Ambrose, man. And our question for today is, what's the difference between an apple and a peach? Answer, because they're both marsupials, Scroll. Isn't that far out? But whatever happened to those old answers we used to use to find Alex Trebek's answers?
These are days of victory. So let's welcome to the barricade the Jackson Pollock of hypnotic painting, the Trevor Tilling of trance, the Seabiscuit of hypnotic horses, and the Keith Moon of hypnosis. Mike Mandel.
So I wanted to do the complete both hands over the top. This is great.
What the heck is Keith Moon?
Keith Moon was the drummer of The Who.
Oh, that's it. So we were away from Keith Richards now.
He died by drug.
I've got to tell you,
I was choked on his own vomit.
I'm laughing so freaking hard. First of all, okay, we're going to talk about we're going to do our think tank words.
All right.
We're going to talk about some neat stuff that hypnosis can fix that is unconscious stuff that just goes on in your brain. So not talking about like, oh, I procrastinate. I'm consciously deciding not to go work out, or I need to change my food. But weird stuff that most people don't think
some
about.
of the stranger things we've seen.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. But before we do that, I just have to say, the other day I was just thinking about how you would often say something like, what's the difference between this or that? Or what you would ask a question, and then the answer would be because they are both marsupials. But often it wouldn't even be a question. It could be, it could be a question, but like not a why question. It would be a question like, where's your car parked? And the person answers, and you'd say no, because they are both marsupials. And it would make no sense. It was a huge pattern interrupt.
Right.
And I think it's actually hypnotic because it fires off a PGO spike, right? It's
definitely does. A mild one. It still does. Well, a huge one if I do it. But listen, here's the thing. My wife is the only person I know who answers a what question with because. I can't figure it out. It doesn't make any sense. I'll say something like, what exactly do you want to have happen this weekend? Because when we... God bless her. The only woman in the world who could put up with me.
Yes, and it's just rewriting the question in their own minds, right? Yes. When people do that, they're not trying on purpose to annoy you. They're rewriting the question in their mind. They're restating what you've said. They're doing a bit of whatever.
Drinking some water.
Anyway, let's move on with our think tank words. And then because we want to make sure we have time to still film some awesome videos after
we're going to rock this.
We're going to rock in the room right through this.
You can give the definition what the think tank words are.
Oh, before we do that, let's just mention, make sure you join us in the Brain Software community. MikeMandelHypnosis.com/free group. All one word because there's no spaces in URLs.
Some good stuff.
Yeah, free MikeMandelHypnosis.com/free group. Yep, check it out. You can join us and chat. So, think tank words. We have 3.
We're going to let you explain what think tank words are and the purpose of them.
Think tank words, the whole point is to draw them randomly and then talk about them, see what they mean to us, and then tie them into the conversation. Just see what our unconscious minds do to connect these words to the content that we're about to discuss. Yeah. And it makes things fun. So here are 3 words, and then you're going to, instead of you reading them, I'll read them, and then you'll talk about them.
Excellent. Here we go.
Mixture, manufacturer, and atmosphere.
Oh, those are interesting. When I think of mixture, I think of combining things. So right away, I think of ADAC. Activate, dissociate, associate, collapse, which is the meta pattern in John Overdorf's
or combining
vernacular.
Ericksonian hypnosis with direct style hypnosis, combining NLP with hypnosis.
Now, this is funny you should say this. I saw my wife's cousin Diane, and I said hi to Cameron too in the last podcast, her husband, Cameron, both teachers. Diane won a Juno Award. And she was just talking about some stuff that she'd been going through and some interesting things. And I was sitting in the chair outside and I intersected her like Nico and I used to intersect people hypnotically. And she went into like really interesting, confusing trance states. And I just put in some programming for resolution. And she said it had really freaked her out how it works. But that's what you can expect around us. So I had mixed our daily conversation with some hypnosis there.
Nice.
And then she realized where it was going. Now, we believe that the whole idea of manufacturer, that the unconscious mind is a manufacturer.
Oh.
And the conscious mind is a consumer.
And I have often described...
Why are you sitting like that? It's very odd.
Our
Very, very
job,
odd. Thank you.
Our job is to be a manufacturer of emotions in other people when we're working with them.
Wow.
And other things too, of course, but starting with emotions.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. What do you get out of atmosphere?
Atmosphere. The atmosphere in the room, I'm very sensitive to atmosphere. And if I go into a meeting and there's something off, bang, I notice it right away. It doesn't know have a clue what it is. But I think we are always in shifting psychological atmospheres with other people. As we become aware of that, we can mix our communications authentically with those of other people. And we can be manufacturers of good states for people who are displaying bad stuff.
And manufacturers of good atmospheres, right?
And manufacturers
if we don't like the atmosphere we're in, we can leave. We can change it. There we go. Fragrance. All right.
Atmosphere.
Okay.
Let's see if we can get a Dracula out of this.
Okay, we're gonna do a Dracula game. Can I what?
Give me a mixture to Dracula.
Mixture to Dracula. So mixture to potion to poison to death to Dracula.
That's not bad.
All right.
I'll give you manufacturer. Manufacturer to manufacturing company to manufacturing companies that give money to other organizations, to companies that give money to the Red Cross, to the Red Cross Blood Bank, to blood to Dracula. Okay.
All right.
Give us atmosphere.
Well no, we're not going to do that.
Gothic atmosphere, scary atmosphere to Dracula.
Okay,
there
you go.
Let's talk about you can't stop it.
Let's talk about hypnosis now. All right.
Okay, hypnotic strangeness. This stuff that's fascinating and unusual.
Let me just set the stage for this. So when we were dialoguing back and forth on Voxer, where we always have to start our conversations by saying breaker balzay.
Breaker balzay, breaker balzay.
And if you don't say the code word balzay, then the other person responds,
says communication
access denied.
Access denied.
Access denied, missing password. So it's like your login to talk to the other person. Anyway, when we're voxing back and forth on Voxer, don't know why I'm making a telephone sound.
No idea.
We were discussing, well, what would be a good topic for this podcast? And I thought, well, we had an actually interesting question come in from somebody on our web chat. On our website, there's a web chat widget, and those questions get logged. And sometimes they're legit customer support questions and they get answered right away. Sometimes they are questions about hypnosis, in which case they get put in a file, because we're not here to answer you freely online. We're not here to just give you free consulting advice.
We never stop.
But we bring it to the podcast. That's the free part, right? So one of the questions came in about a topic we're going to bring up today, misophonia.
Yeah.
But it got me thinking, there are so many little weird things that bug people where like a good example might be that is every day somebody could be afraid of a spider or afraid of a snake and why would they be? Like, it's not something that they're consciously thinking, oh, I that seems scary. I should be afraid of that. And then there are other just things that people get triggered negatively with sounds like misophonia we're going to talk about, or other examples like that, or so phobias, anxieties.
And they may not know, they have no idea of the origin or anything.
And a lot of the time, so this particular guy who asked the question said, I have this issue, which we'll get into in a moment. Can hypnosis help? And I thought, this is a great topic for the podcast, so let's bring it on.
Well, let's look at it. First of all, misophonia. It's something I suffer from to a minor degree, but it's noises that annoy people. But it's not just like clicking noises.
It's like a complicated. It can be a combination of the noise and the environment, or something like combining noises.
But are you saying sounds can affect people? Yes, because I have a friend who has MS, and he gets a thing called audiogenic urinary urgency. There's certain sounds.
Oh,
and he
wow.
has to rush to the washroom. And one of them is gassing up the car, the sound of that.
So the sound of, of course, because it's like fluid moving, right?
But it doesn't even have to be connected to that because he gets the same sound with vitamins in a bottle rattling.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
So you just rattle around some vitamins.
Audiogenic, yeah.
This guy's running off to the toilet.
Here's the thing. I had a cat, Tesla, named after the the scientist, not named after Chris's car. And he thought he was a cheetah. He was a Bengal. And he was really long like a rifle.
You told me about this
He
once.
had something called FARS, F-A-R-S, feline audiogenic reflex seizure.
Yeah.
So he suddenly has this seizure in our kitchen. I'm completely freaked out because he's my boy. I lost him 4 years ago. Lovely cat. But he just has this seizure. My wife and I rush him to the emergency vet. Seizure's typically over in like 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes. He had a seizure for 90 minutes.
Which is
90 minutes.
crazy.
And we started looking it up. And the vet had talked about feline audiogenic reflex seizure. And they said one of the things that triggers it is the sound of aluminum foil with some cats. Heather said, oh. I said, what? She said, I was just chasing him down the hall with a sheet of aluminum foil, shaking it. I said, oh, bloody hell.
Who would think to do that? Let's just chase the cat with a sheet of aluminum foil.
But he had actual seizures based on this. Once we dropped the pots and pans in the kitchen, bang, went right into a seizure for like 30 seconds. So there's a legitimacy to this in the brain, this misophonia.
Right.
It's not the person, oh, you're just imagining, you're just stupid. You should stop it. No,
it's somehow anchored. I mean, you can think of it as an anchor. It probably. So we're going to talk about these
let me give you
things.
some examples from my own life that drive me nuts.
And then I'll give you the example of the actual
one. Yeah.
not customer, but.
And the resolution of it all.
Yeah.
If there is any. So whispering in Breaking Bad. Unnecessary whispering makes my skin crawl. And I love Breaking Bad. I thought it was brilliant. Loved Heisenberg, loved Jesse. But Marie and Skylar to a
Which
lesser
was
degree,
the wife of, Marie was the wife of the DEA agent. What's his name?
What happened was, I don't even care.
Yeah.
But she just, every effing scene, we need to fix this. Why are we? I'm thinking, why? I'm yelling at the TV. Why are you whispering? Why did the director let this happen? That's why I could never watch the series again. I love the series except for that.
Now, that's a pretty minor effect, but it is still.
I was ready to kill somebody. Minor. Yeah, as long as it's less than 4 people. Yeah.
You're
not going to hunt her down or anything.
Yeah.
It was just.
Well, compared to, so I'll give you the other example. So the guy who sent us in the message, he has this strange reaction to ceiling fans. And so it's not just the sound, but it's the idea that visually it's a fan and it's making
so it takes the two together.
Yeah.
So it's in 2 senses.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of different.
And he wanted to know, is there a way to resolve this with hypnosis? Because he had done his own research and determined that it's called misophonia, but that he wasn't aware of any solution. I'm thinking, okay, anything like this, these are probably rooted in some past situation. Something happened in the
you're
past.
Jumping ahead, though.
Maybe. We'll get to it.
We got resolution here. We got some ideas to that.
Okay.
But we need a couple
I'm
more
not
examples.
offering the resolution yet,
good.
though. So just to be clear, I'm
it'd be
only
completely
saying
inappropriate.
that something happens because we're not born with this, right? The guy probably didn't come out of the womb, hey, ceiling fans, that bothers me. Wah! Right? Unlikely. At some point it developed. Same thing with a phobia, same thing with anxiety, same thing with a habit. If somebody has like a weird twitch or something, they probably weren't born with it.
Probably not.
It developed at some point, and then it's an unconscious thing. They don't necessarily even know how it happened, why it happens. They just want it gone. Whether you have to go back to solve it is a separate story. I'm just saying that there are a lot of these things that happen in people's brains and therefore bodies, and it pisses them off and they want them solved, right? Like he lived in a hot climate. He's like, hey, man, I can't go through life being awkward around ceiling fans because then I'll be uncomfortable and hot and sweaty at night.
Exactly.
Yeah. So there we go.
I want to give some real world examples real quick. The one drives me crazy. Some of you may know this one. If you're in a movie theater, so I never go to movie theaters anymore. Freaking idiots who crunch popcorn with their mouth open, trying to crunch every little bit out of the.
Yeah.
And then they.
So that's misophonia.
Oh, it is.
That's misophonia, but specific context, right? Which is why it has that complexity.
Puts me in a range, yes.
If somebody does that while you're, I don't know, in your backyard having a pool party or something, it's not going to piss you off so much.
Not the same. Now, I'm going to give you 2 very good examples. Both involve our friend Paul.
Oh, okay.
Let's do this one. You'll like this because I don't think I ever told you. It was funny. We were shooting a documentary, and it was one on how the pyramids of Egypt, the mathematics, how it ties to the earth and the moon and all this. And I was asked to come in and be the host for this. So we're shooting this thing. It never got made. And Paul was one of the guys behind it. His brother was the money man. So there's Paul and his brother Dave.
Yeah.
Okay? No, it's not an eating thing.
Oh, okay.
Surprising. Paul and Dave. We're like those 2 twins who ride those mini bikes and weigh like 700 pounds. So they're sitting next to each other in the meeting with their hands just resting on their bellies like this. And Paul's breathing through his mouth. and his frickin' uvula in the back of his throat is clicking. He's sitting there like this going,
You said Paul, but I think you mean his brother.
no, Paul.
Okay.
Paul's, so he's going like that. And then in a moment I hear Dave answer. And the two of them
Like they're
heavy guys,
communicating.
just their uvulas clicking, their mouth breathing. I just wanted to, it drove me crazy.
Is uvula communication ovulation all of a sudden
Shut
now?
up. Here's what made it, but Paul did an even worse one.
Uh-oh.
Remember many years ago at the church I went to, we ran a Bible study at our home, and I read it because I love the New Testament and so on. And when I was not there to teach it, Paul would sometimes teach it in my absence. And they said it was driving them nuts because he did this weird thing when he was teaching. Heather said it was quietness equals holiness or something. God bless him. But he started teaching, and he'd stop letting his voice kick in. And he'd start talking like this instead of talking normally. My friend Ralph does this too. So it's very soft, very soothing, very kinesthetic. I teach, let your voice kick in. Oh, you're talking very soft.
Softly, very soft.
Anyway, those are both misophonic for me.
You just made me realize.
What?
I was thinking when we got to do some YouTube shorts after this, and one of them we have to do the pattern interrupt. The you. What are you talking about? I'm talking about you. We have to do that and the
we'll do it.
Paul mishap.
What's the Paul mishap?
Oh, you. What do you want to? What do you?
No, we're not. No, we're not doing that one. We're not. That'll be when we finally stop doing this podcast. That'll be in the
Get us
final one where I'll say
canceled.
everything I've always wanted to say in the world.
okay.
Now, okay, so can misophonia be treated? And with hypnosis as well. Remember, our model says hypnosis is an amplifier of human experience.
Okay.
You can use NLP and you can use tapping it. You can do pure hypnosis. I'm thinking probably yes. There might even be an ISE, an initial sensitizing event that
Bingo.
started this entire platform.
No, pause for a moment, because what I'm going to do is say, we're just to set the stage for what's to come in the rest of this podcast. We're going to directly address misophonia, but then we'll also talk about how the same things we're going to talk about to address it could be used for a bunch of different other problems, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so does that make sense?
Sure.
Awesome. All right.
That's
Glad you're on
fantastic.
board with me.
So here's how we can deal with it. I said ISEs. Timeline will take you to initial sensitizing event.
Right. So
You can get the cause.
ISE means initial sensitizing event, which is going back to the cause.
Not in a time machine, but in your perception of the event.
in your mind.
Yeah, and
Right.
it's a wonderful technique. And
So there's lots of ways to get there. We could get there with idiomotor signaling. We could get there with timeline. We could get there with
through regression to cause.
direct style regression to cause, which we have a whole YouTube playlist on.
Now, you can also deal with it probably with a control panel. So you hypnotize the person, put them in a profound trance. We want a degree of profundity so that we're going to get a solid result here that's going to last. Have them find the control panel, find the switch, dial, lever, if you're English like I am,
that
whatever.
represents your sensitivity to
Yes.
yeah.
And turn that pecker down as far as your
Turn that
unconscious
pecker.
mind
And
will
make
let
sure you use the word pecker with your client.
Yes, exactly.
Another one this is kind of now our universal go-to method.
Oh, ADAC.
Because it's so freaking easy to teach people. In fact, I think we should actually create like a master class on this for people who haven't yet joined the academy.
Brilliant.
It actually works really well. It's super educational. It solves problems fast. People can use it right away. And then they go, hey, maybe I want to join the Mike Mandel Hypnosis Academy because that would be a good idea. Anyway, yes, it's called ADAC. And we call it ADAC. It's really John Overder's meta pattern.
He was the first to identify it.
And it basically works by associating into
Activating.
we call it activate now,
Yes,
not associate, but we activate the problem state. You always have to activate the problem state in order to solve it because that gets the ego state that has the problem,
To the
executive, which we'll get to parts later. You have to then dissociate from the problem. Then you have to associate into a powerful resource state and then collapse the two, which means that the stronger resource state will win over this crappy, I'm bothered by
the
ceiling
stronger state
fans.
but the stronger state will overwhelm it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, actually, I know you have some other notes here, but why don't we talk about ego state change work as well?
Okay. Well, first of all, we are sub-personalities. We've talked about this a million times. This is not some imaginary. These are hardwired into the physical structure of your brain and neural pathways. We create them in early childhood to deal with different things, both good and bad. And we use the same 5 to 15 on a regular basis. You may have up to 150. We've interviewed Dr. Gordon Emerson, the world's leading authority on this, classical psychologist who specializes in resource states, as he calls them. And these sub-personalities switch with each other all the time, one of which will be connected to prefrontal cortex, where executive function is at any given moment. The one that's connected is the you that's currently you.
And they all have a role, right?
They all have a role.
There is
Some
a
complex
part
roles,
that you
some
could
simple.
you could hypothesize or simply
big word.
imagine that there is a part that is creating this response to ceiling fans.
Well, this is it. You may, and the research is so bizarre in the whole ego state work. And it's sort of a specialty of mine. I work ego states with one of our lovely friends at Hypnothoughts Live. I want to hear her result on that. But the thing about ego states is when you get to the one that has the problem, it may be the only one that has that problem, and you can negotiate with it. So if the person had the ceiling fan one, which is a complex misophonia insofar as they're seeing the ceiling fan and feeling or hearing the wind from it or the breeze from it, you could have it so that if there is a ceiling fan present that can be seen, that one never becomes executive. So you're removing one of the components.
You know, it would be a it would be an interesting experiment to be, let's say, outside of the room with the ceiling fan. So you're not in the room yet. Activate a totally different ego state. Let's say an ego state that is pissed off about something. I don't know, something from your childhood, whatever. Something totally unrelated to fans.
Okay.
And then maintain
Just
that ego state.
Where are you going with this?
I walk into the room. Just walk into the room with a totally different ego state activated and notice my hypothesis, there's that word again.
There it is
that it won't bother you until you start to focus on it, because that'll shift to a different ego state.
It may well do that.
And that might actually serve as a fun convincer strategy for the person.
Yep. That's a great convincer strategy. Also, my 6-step tapping, top of the head, center of the forehead, outer corner of the eye, under edge of the collarbone on either side. Squeeze the wrist, breathe in, exhale, say peace, relax. That 6-step, I've thrown it at all kinds of things, and 90% of the time it'll work. It's an extremely high success rate. You only have to be persistent with it.
Right.
So I would get the feeling of the misophonia. What is annoying about this? Feel it as much as possible, which is going to activate the evaded or irritated ego state to come to the surface, whereupon when you discharge this negative emotion, always take it to 0. Don't settle for feeling better. Everybody, it's better than it was. No, wipe it out and then put yourself in a good, powerful state, or fire your awesome anchor, which you should know all about if you're listening to these podcasts.
I would suggest that's probably the easiest thing to start with, because it only takes about a minute or two. And if you're wondering how to learn more about this, we have a video that was recorded a few years back. You described how you cured, for lack of a better term, your own fibromyalgia.
After suffering it for years.
We'll put it in the show notes. We'll make sure this is in the show notes when we're editing this. But there is a video on YouTube, and it's called Fibromyalgia Cure. You explain it. You can take the exact same method that Mike teaches in that video and apply it to this, and it really works.
I had it for years, and I had to go for osteopathy. And so anyway, bottom line is, one of my students online, I worked with him on Zoom. He worked with his wife in the same room and didn't want to appear on camera. And I coached him, and he erased her fibromyalgia.
Yes, I remember getting the emails. Remember?
Incredible.
It came in, and he wanted to know how to deal with it. You directed him, and I think I provided the link. Said, go to this YouTube video, copy this, just do this, and keep doing it until it's freaking gone.
But that can't be, because fibromyalgia is incurable.
Yeah,
just like my altoceleraphobia was incurable, except it wasn't.
Yeah.
All right,
man. Yeah, this is, unfortunately, this brings us to that traditional medical model. I was actually talking with one of our clients at Pythos, which somebody, by the way, I'll talk about this in a moment. One of our clients, her name is Kate, and she deals with natural health stuff.
Okay.
And actually has a history of being diagnosed with MS at a very early age. And the doctors just want to prescribe a drug cocktail, and you're kind of on it forever. And she thought, there's got to be something else. Long story short, took something like, I think she mentioned 11 years. She has a YouTube video on this.
Wow.
Solved it on her own, and now specializes in helping women with hormonal, autoimmune problems, all kinds of things. And we were talking about this on a Zoom call recently about how traditionally the doctor will just treat you with medication, and the job is to get the dose right, and you're on it for life.
Well, that's the difference, Chris.
It's we can do different things.
But think of the wording. It used to be that people took medicine. Medicine is to get rid of a problem.
Yeah.
Medication is to keep treating the problem.
Oh, good point. That's true. Yeah, you put medicine on a wound.
Not there's anything wrong with it.
You take medication.
These are just our opinions.
Life. Yeah. No. Okay. So here's a funny thing. I got an email from somebody. I believe he's coming to our Architecture of Hypnosis in November. But strangest thing, he said that he was curious about Pythos, which is Pykhtos. I'm going to do a small promotion. This is it's our sister company, and it's our platform for helping people helpers with automation, business solutions, marketing. It's basically an all-in-one piece of software that does all the things that you might want to do in your online business, memberships and landing pages and funnels and all that stuff. And he said that he checked it out, and then he was really dismayed to find out that it was actually our own company. I'm like, but wait a second, you're not upset that we'll talk about the architecture of hypnosis or the Mike Mandel Hypnosis Academy on our podcast, but somehow it's not okay to talk about it.
That's very odd.
And I thought that was, and I didn't quite get an explanation. So I can't remember the gentleman's name who asked, but I would appreciate a reply. I'm very curious how you formed that view. It was interesting to me.
That's very interesting. Let's just let's look at one final treatment here. I'm looking at mirroring hands. Our friend Richard Hill, soon to be Dr. Richard Hill, worked with Ernest Rossi developing mirroring hands, which is a mind-blowing technique. I've had terrific results with it. And when we're in Las Vegas, remember I told you I don't do therapy anymore.
You don't have to disclose the details, but you did that.
I met with one of her wonderful students who had some issues and had promised her that I would meet with her. She's highly educated, really nice person. And I looked at her, and while we sat down in the family room at
what Scott's now calling the family room. It used to be called the lounge. We did a bunch of
called family rooms. She was sitting there opposite me, and I was asking her to describe her problem. And that's what triggered mirroring hands, because she described it with her hands in front of her like this the whole time. So I just segued into mirroring hands. And her problem wound up on one of these, her solution on the other. Her hands did all the usual stuff with no suggestion, just like Richard Hill. And my strongest intervention was going,
Yeah,
that's about it.
Yeah,
I
love that
co-creating. And here's what happened: this hand came down, both hands came together, and it ended in a freaking steepling position,
which is nice. So yes, and she would be very familiar with our content on steepling.
Now let's talk about irrational fears and hypnosis.
Before we do that, I just want to say we just got to give a shout out. We didn't spend enough time with him in Vegas, and we talked about on the last podcast all the takeaways from Hypnothoughts Live. But it was so freaking great to see Richard Hill.
Richard Hill's a fabulous guy
from Australia. He's just a phenomenal guy. We gotta collaborate with Richard.
Well, we do. And if Ernest Rossi was Milton Erickson's protege, and there's reasons for saying that was very likely. I'm sure he had several.
Oh yeah,
but
Hill
was Ernest Rossi's protege. He's 1 degree away from Milton Erickson, which puts us only 2 away.
And I love what he teaches with mirroring hands, because it is not the never-ending sentence that it's a bit of a short. Not shortcut. I was going to say shortcut. It's more like a trail off. You start your never-ending sentence. I wonder if you'll, and then you kind of pause and wait. It's this,
and if that other
hand should.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
And the two of you are co-creating. It's the least intrusive. I love mindscaping because it's not intrusive. It doesn't lead the witness.
It takes artful, vague language to a new level.
Beautiful stuff. Beautiful stuff.
All right. So go
Richard,
ahead.
Shout out to you, buddy. Always great to see you. We got to get you in Toronto at some point. That's just got to happen. We got to get Paul Pacific and Michael C. Anthony.
There's so many things we have to do. All right, let's talk about like we just were about to go into. What other weird things?
Here's what I want to talk to you about: irrational fears.
Right.
And in the research on this, I stumbled upon something very disturbing I had seen many years ago. And I'm not going to trigger anybody with this, but this is where my heart goes with it. The Little Albert experiments from the 1920s. Now, this is Dr.
What's
John. This is Dr. John Watson. I had seen a horrendous video, black and white, from probably the 20s or 30s, many years ago, and it really pissed me off. And what they were doing was intentionally giving toddlers phobias to see if they could do it and leaving them in horrified states.
That's like horrible.
It was like a horror movie. This little boy, this rabbit's all around him, and he's maybe 2 or 18 months. He's playing with these rabbits, and a man comes in with a suit on and a horrible rabbit face on. He keeps getting in his face and scaring him. And the kid's screaming his head off.
And now the kid's scared of rabbits.
I was scared of rabbits. Oh, yeah. And they leave him like that. Like this guy, John Watkins, who's dead. When I watched that,
as he should be,
I wanted to put his head through a freaking wall. I'll give you something to be afraid of. Anybody who hurts children, hurts the innocent intentionally, you got a freaking problem. And that really pissed me off. Well, the Little Albert experiments from the 20s, that's what they did. They had no constraints on their behavior. Oh, it's science. You can do almost anything. Much like the, Kinsey experiments with sexuality with children. I mean, this is freaking evil stuff. But these things get installed through horror, through shock. And, I said, I looked at the phobias I've cured over the years or treated for people. Well over 100. Snakes, amusement park rides.
Oh, yeah.
Spiders. That's a classic. Spiders have many aspects or hold-ons. Altoceleraphobia, my own fear of high ceilings.
Which was fear of high ceilings.
Horrible.
Yeah, the feeling that...
Or being next to a building that was really tall.
Yeah, you described altoceleraphobia like if you looked up, you'd feel like gravity was going to go backwards.
Feel like
and
it was upside
pull
down.
you.
Yeah, by my feet. I'm getting sweaty hands thinking about it. Scary thing I still had it.
That's hilarious.
Just kidding.
Yeah.
The great outdoors. Agoraphobia.
Agoraphobia.
I dealt with a couple of cases of agoraphobia.
And the weirdest one of all,
Mustard.
you had a client who had a fear of mustard.
Absolute fear of mustard. When she would go into a supermarket, she would look for where the aisles of the condiments are. And she wanted to buy hot sauce or ketchup, but had to make sure she couldn't see the yellow mustard out of the corner. She'd have a panic attack if she saw a jar of French's mustard.
I bet you this would also get as weird as a picture of freaking mustard would probably set her off. Similarly, you described in allergies, so obviously the brain can turn on an allergy even in the absence of the allergen, right? Yeah. And so a picture of something that someone was allergic to could trigger a part of that allergy.
And I said I saw that with one of my clients years ago and having practice. It was either, I can't remember if it was shellfish or peanuts. But she
you were
couldn't
gonna say
touch a
something else.
photograph in a magazine of shellfish.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, you said it was shellfish. The weirdest one that I dealt with, and it's not as weird as mustard, but it was weird to me at the time, was a fear of having blood pressure measured, like the cuff.
Ultimate white coat syndrome.
And I think I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but the woman had
I thought you were saying it was yours.
No, the woman had, I guess, a side income participating in medical trials.
Oh, God.
And in order to get it, there was admission criteria, and the doctor would have to check you, or the nurse would check your blood pressure. And she was super uncomfortable with that cuff going on. And, you know, it's probably very similar to when I was a kid. Did I ever tell you this? I hated turtlenecks. Turtlenecks were very in style and stuff.
Reason to hate them.
I hated them because of the constriction around the neck.
I hated too.
And it took me until years later to realize that probably the initial sensitizing event was when I lived in Dollar des Ormeaux, an area outside of Montreal, West Island of Montreal.
Name.
Yeah, Dollar des Ormeaux. I grew up there. And I was at West Park Pool, and I was a really good swimmer and
you were
a skinny little kid. Not then, obviously, but yeah, later on. But I was playing water polo, and I had the ball, and I was swimming with it. Some bigger kid came from behind thinking he would get the ball, ended up kind of choking me. Not choking me in a bad way, but I was a little kid. So I went underwater with someone's arm around my neck. And I felt like I was being choked. I was going to drown.
Terrifying.
So do you think maybe that could turn into I hate turtlenecks? Now I'm over it now because I think it collapsed when I realized it.
Two interesting things there. So this was water polo you were playing when you were young.
Yeah.
Now, did the horse drown? Comic genius.
Okay, so
now,
that water that takes on to the idea of feeling maybe any feeling of constriction. That woman may have initial sensitizing event. Oh, there you go.
Not saying anything wrong with it.
But the bottom line is, do you need to know the initial sensitizing event to fix the problem?
No. And here, let's just say that touching on turtlenecks here because we are.
Okay.
Katharine Hepburn, the amazing actress of the past, she always wore turtlenecks. You'll see that. And my wife knew why. I didn't know why. Do you know why, Chris?
Why?
Because she got freaking old person neck like I got now at 71. Although I can squeeze the back of my neck and just firm it all up and it's gone. So she wore turtlenecks to hide it. So my wife's starting to try to get me into turtlenecks, but I'm not going to be doing that. Now, the other thing was, no, you don't need to have the cause because with the mustard, we couldn't find the cause.
Yeah.
That was done entirely with the tapping and some hypnosis support and wiped it out completely. Now she's terrified of ketchup.
Yeah. I love the line where, where we teach people all the time the importance of getting the positive. What do you want? I know we're running out of time. What do you want? And then making sure they tell you what they want in the positive. And so if somebody would say, well, I don't want to be terrified of spiders anymore. And you would always say something like, well, I'll just, how about I make you afraid of carpets?
Make you terrified of carpets.
No, I don't want that either.
Okay, how about
then they get the point.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's think we have
at one point. People say, how can, this is why the guy who argued with me about altocellulophobia had a support group. And I said, when you just cure, you're just trying to rip people out. I said, whoa.
I'm not selling you anything.
I'm not selling anything. And here's the weirdness. People can't understand how a horribly life-affecting phobia that you've had for 20, 30, 50 years can be erased in one session.
Yeah.
But why? Because as Dr. Bandler said, the brain learns quickly. The brain likes to learn quickly. You didn't attempt to get a phobia for 5 years and then finally got it. No, it happened instantly. And the fix can be equally fast.
All right. Now we bring you a special report from the best Western Inn on the bay just south of Shallow Lake in Gray County with roving reporter Brado reporting.
Yeah, how are you now? Thanks again. Well, that was really exciting because it seems like my new friends, Eddard and Duder, aren't dicks at all. Not only is Hypno North Live Conference starting in just a few days, but Duder's invited thousands of people, and apparently the calls are coming in for more information. Eddard's even approached Scott Sandlin to deliver the keynote on the topic, Vegas, yes, but why Meaford? Now, so it's all falling into place thanks to my new best friends forever, Eddard and Duder. You just have to hand it to them. They've proven to be the smartest guys in the room, and I'm going to be richer than Thompson and Mandel when this all runs its course. Now, the hotel's booked, restaurants prepared to serve a gourmet menu, flights are being booked by people, and this promises to be a yearly event from now on, so plan to show up next year because this first one's going to be sold out in a few days. I've even ordered a new sports coat, and I'm getting a haircut too. I might even clean out the Dodge Ram and put a coat of turtle wax on it because I guarantee this is going to rock like no other conference on earth. Duder's heard from so many people the UK Hypnosis Convention's interested in moving their conference to me for next year. Isn't that choice? So it's your old pal Brado here in the beautiful land of Grey County, future millionaire, perhaps one day mayor of Meaford, signing off and saying thanks once again and good night. And a very public apology to Eddard and Duder for not having eyes to see what brilliant, upstanding entrepreneurs they are for all these years.
And we are back. All right, so we're going to wrap up. Before we get into the wrap-up commentary here, I want to tell you something that happened recently. I don't know what you just said a moment ago that made me think of it, but I got it was you're just trying to sell us something on the altoceleraphobia thing, where, of course, you were just like freely offering, hey, here's what worked for me. Try it out, see what works. We got a response to our Sunday newsletter, the open mic, which had nothing for sale. I just want to mention that.
Okay.
It was a newsletter with like Mike's letter. It was an interesting piece of commentary. And
what was our topic?
I can't remember what it was anyway. It was the one on can hypnosis actually make you commit a crime?
Oh, yes.
You did a really nice, and it will turn into a blog post, but so somebody wrote back, I shouldn't be laughing because the context is the person was a dick. That's what I'm basically getting at. Okay. So Dick Chant, I'm not going to do
coming
it.
up.
I won't necessarily do
it's
it.
like
I don't remember the person's name, but I do remember that the context was, well, let's see if you really care about people because and then he went on to describe some horrendous stuff that happened in his childhood, which is really bad.
Sure.
Like,
yes.
No question. I'm not laughing about this at all. I just want to make it clear. And I'm not even going to say what it was because
No, of course not. No need.
It was freaking bad. And you would want to do damage to the person who did this.
Yeah,
okay.
That's the story of my life.
But now back to, well, let's see if you really care about people and if you're just bastards who are trying to make money, blah, 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 blah. My phone number is something so-and-so, he gives his phone number. And if you really care about people, then you'll call me because I need help with this problem. Like, oh yeah, my job is to suddenly get on the phone and just call
because of
people who
that went out to 40,000 people.
Rude to me on email. Yeah. I just replied and I said, I'm really sorry to hear what happened to you. That sounds horrible. And I'm deleting you because you're rude.
Yeah, Chris, now can I ask you, would you like to do the Dick Chant?
Dick. A dick. There we go.
10 out of 10. Thank you.
Oh, man. People are telling us that they enjoy this. Somebody told me, it was our friends David and Gina.
What?
And they said, my 12-year-old son really likes the podcast and I guess is taken to the Dick Chant. So there you go. I think that's fantastic.
I hope he does the Dracula game too. Didn't you want any more of this stellar freaking
Yes,
content?
that's it. I was giving you some time to figure out where you wanted to go.
Okay. Let me talk about another interesting hypnosis thing and how strange this can all be. I worked with a woman, beautiful woman, who was an A&R person for a major music publication company, like big, you know for sure. She was beautiful, she was funny, she was smart, and she was a Brit, so she had a great sense of humor. Made everybody laugh all the time, so personable, except when she had to make a presentation at work, everything went off the rails.
Oh.
She was nervous, she had trouble speaking, she felt really stressed, and so she came to me, hired the A-team back in the mid-1990s. And I ran a process with her. And we found out through the effect bridge, that feeling she got when she was going to present, it went all the way back to when she was a little girl.
Multiplication tables?
Yes.
Her
father made her stand, he was a dick, made her stand on the kitchen table.
Probably well-meaning, thinking he was doing her a favor.
Well-meaning.
No,
we know where that comes from.
But dickish, yeah.
Very dickish. Told her to stand on the kitchen table. She had to do the multiplication table out loud right up to the 14 times table.
And if she screwed up?
Once, he had to start back at the beginning. And it anchored poor performance when under stress.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
as soon as here's the amazing thing. So hypnosis takes her back to the event. She didn't have to rewrite it, anything. As soon as she saw this through the eyes of the informed adult, guess what happens? It imploded. She had to make a presentation at work the following week, I think. They said she aced it.
Yeah.
She was hilarious, so effortless. She couldn't believe it. She was the same person there as we would be now. Side effect. Things changed in her life dramatically.
I remember. I won't say anything. I know.
She left her husband.
Yeah.
They split up.
She fixed herself, and
she
then
fixed herself.
she got her confidence.
She got her power back.
Yeah.
And her marriage didn't survive it. So be careful where you intervene because the world can change.
Yeah.
What else, buddy?
Well, what else do we have in our notes here just before?
Here's a weird hypnosis thing. Listen to this one. Hypnotic Waves, John Cholette. Back in the late 1970s, I was performing in Sudbury, and I met a French-Canadian hypnotist by the name of John Cholette. I've attempted to find him over the years, and I've been unsuccessful. I remember Cal Smith, the cop, who I just said, you'll never smoke again.
Yes.
Then ran into him in Sudbury 2 years later, and he never smoked again.
Yes.
Just after saying it on stage. John Cholette was at that gig. That's the last time I saw him. So that's
nice.
Way, way back. But John Cholette was trained by a hypnotist called the Great Romeo. And this is I'm sure it was very, anyway, what he said was you could put people back to back and hypnotize one person silently. And when he went into trance, the other person's head would drop and they'd go into trance at the same time. Well, I'm naturally completely skeptical of this. And then did it on stage one night.
Okay.
Put a guy at the far end of the stage, guy over here. But there is an implication. There's unspoken information here.
Yeah.
Of course, everybody's watching and waiting for this to go. But John said one person could be in Montreal and you could be in Toronto as long as they were aligned. Well, that to me is superstition.
Yeah, that didn't.
John was a great guy. I'd love to see him again. Love to hear from him. But having seen that work, it's the kind of thing. Hypnosis can cause an ascendancy in the senses. You're losing interest in that.
No, I'm not.
Hypnosis can cause an ascendancy in the senses to such a degree that you're picking up very subtle information. And I think that's what is happening with that. They're cueing the audience, picking up cues from the audience. And so
yeah, I don't believe you can pick up cues from someone in another city.
No, neither do I. So here's where this gets interesting. I've got to try this on for size. I haven't done this in years. At the next Architecture of Hypnosis in Toronto in November, you get somebody a deck of cards. They can be brand new cards. They're shuffled. They take one. They don't see the face of it. You show it to the group. So say it's Queen of Spades. It's put back in and shuffled. But before it's put back in, they look at the back of it, put it on top of the deck, and you say, this is a photograph of the person you love most in the world. It's a perfect picture. Study it. So they stare at this thing. They shuffle back in the deck. Hand them the cards. They're in trance. You say, take out that picture. And they go through the cards. Here. And it's the one. They're detecting microscopic differences in the cards, and they can find it. It's pretty mind-blowing.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I thought you were going to involve the audience somehow and have them calibrate the audience's reaction.
No, they're the ones who applaud at the
end. Okay.
Mandel.
Oh, there you go.
Here's another one of those things where research goes off the rails because of idiots like the Dick John Watson and the little Albert experiments and so on. Irresponsible, horrible, evil. Estabrooks, 1945, in his book Hypnotism, he actually says this. And if anybody took him up on it, the Dick chant isn't enough. He said, it's possible to hypnotize someone in a stage show and tell them they're drinking a glass of fine wine and give them a glass of turpentine to drink, and they'll react as though it's wine. Now, I looked at the toxicology on turpentine.
That would not be good.
You can freaking kill people from drinking.
Yeah.
Why would he put that in his book?
See, here's the thing. I believe he's probably right that in a stage environment, someone might drink that. But that's only because they believe it's going to be safe. They believe they're in a safe environment. They believe it's a safe show.
Yeah.
And they don't have time to evaluate. So they start drinking before they realize what they're doing.
But it's toxic.
Exactly. It would be horrible.
Kill somebody.
Like, can it be done? Yeah, maybe.
Should it be done?
Dick.
No. Here's the thing. Estabrooks has been dead for a number of years. So, George, I know you can't defend yourself, but here we go. Dick.
2-in-1 podcast. There you go.
So, yeah, that's crazy. But
all right.
What about this? Let's just put in one more weird hypnosis thing, which I love. This came from Kev Sheldrake and Anthony Jacquin, the automatic imagination model.
Yeah, that was many years ago.
Right. Where they began to do, I think early 2000s, they distilled down the idea. What if hypnosis is just engaging the thing that Ellman called selective attention so much that there's no trance, it's just selective attention on steroids. And the example is this. So we did this in the class. when we were still at Brennan Hall, University of Toronto, which we have nothing whatever to do with for certain reasons.
Which we will not talk about for personal
I'll do a
reasons.
short form. Dick. Anyway, so Dr. Lino, nice guy. He's in the class, and I demonstrated this. There was a coat rack at the back of the room, and I got him to hold onto the rail of the coat rack. I said, now pretend that your hand is locked there and you cannot remove it. And now pretend that you don't know that you're the one doing this, and just keep pretending that. And he got almost like a panic look. He could not let go of this freaking thing just from that.
Yeah.
And then all you have to say is the release is remember, you're the one doing this. You can take your hand. Oh yeah. But the response was as profound as if I'd locked his hand on.
Because it does establish that selective
thinking. Yeah. Well, that's that.
That brings us to the end.
Close of this Packer.
All right.
Time.
Well,
we need the empowering question.
Yeah, we're going to do the empowering question. We've gone a little longer than we thought on this one. So here's your empowering question. Then Mike, you'll do the Metafive, and then we'll say whatever we say to end it. Ask yourself, here's your empowering question for 262. Ask yourself, what would be a reasonable fee to attend a 3-day hypnosis convention near Shallow Lake, Ontario? And what presenters would you like to see there other than Eddard and Duder?
Brilliant. Here's the Metafive. It's an unusual one. It's sort of a Meaford style one. This guy came out one morning and he was going to drive to Tim Hortons and he was going to get a coffee. But on the way there, it started to rain and the road got really slippery. And there were construction workers up ahead. And so he decided, I'll turn around and go home. And as he was going home, there were people standing at the side of the road and they started yelling stuff and they just went home.
All right.
This has been Brain Software 262.
Before you say it,
I'm not gonna
make sure you check out MikeMandelHypnosis.com/free group. All one word. That's where you can join the Brain Software community. That is our free community. So MikeMandelHypnosis.com/free group. If you want to go and check out our website, if you are interested in considering coming to the architecture of hypnosis, I mean, there's really no reason that you need to come to Toronto to hang out with us for 5 days and learn hypnosis. I wouldn't say that it's the most amazing experience of your life, because I want you to discover that for yourself.
Brilliant.
And I would certainly not pressure you into thinking, well, it's way over half full, so I better sign up now. No, you can make your own decision. Anyway, check out MikeMandelHypnosis.com. You can click on the events link and you can check it out and you can make your own decision on how you can come and join us for the most fascinating life.
We'll see you there.
All right. Thanks once again, and good night.